Hello and welcome to the Point to Rise show. This is your host, Susanne, former international ballerina that found her passion in mindset, business, and technology, and is today the founder of Rise Media. It is my purpose to use all the experiences of my past to create a better, financially sustainable future for the performing arts industry. And that starts with every single one of us. I believe that being you is your superpower. And I am here to guide you, empower you, inspire you, and give you all the resources you need to rise above what you think you're capable of. Every week, I'll bring you free shows featuring guests, collaboration, and mini episodes to ensure that you have the support in your journey as a performer. I want you to know that you are not alone. Stop chasing and start creating. Your success starts now, here with you. So let's go. And we are back. Today's guest is Sanchez. Oh my gosh, you guys, this conversation, I was sitting in my chair, feeling overwhelmed actually at times because I could not comprehend the knowledge that he has around communication and how we use our words. And I'm so glad I've met him. I am so glad we've had this conversation because it opened up so much in my thinking and planning and understanding, and lots of light bulbs were opened up. And I want to, before I actually dive into his bio, wanted to say that if you feel the same way, overwhelmed at times, which is totally fine, that's his superpower, right? To speak about how we use communication to interact with each other. But if you find yourself overwhelmed, write down what questions you have, what you didn't understand, email us, either one of us, or put it into your IG feed and tag us so that we can actually answer your question and making sure that we're serving you at the highest way. Okay, so Eze is your typical mechanical engineer turned life coach. After realizing he was miserable going along with what he thought he should do, get a degree, get a 9-to-5 job, Eze left everything behind in search of purpose and self-love. He searched for 2 years, backpacking in Central and South America, visiting shamans, attending ayahuasca ceremonies, attending retreats, and trying on whatever healing modalities he could actually find. In the end, he discovered that trying to hear himself rather than trying to heal himself is what gave him what he was searching for all along, loving himself as he is, and also a passion in helping others discover themselves. So without no further ado, sit down, have a coffee, go for a walk, and take every single word that he is saying in. We're sending you so much love. Enjoy. And we're back. Welcome to Point to Rise. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing your insight and your wisdom with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here, Susanne.
And I said your name right. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so,
Celebration.
yes, we should. Absolutely. Everything. We should celebrate it all. Okay, so let's get started with share a little bit with us, with the audience, what lights you up, what really brought you to becoming a life coach and escape the 9-to-5 hustle, and what are you working on right now?
Yeah, sure. So what lights me up? Absolutely communication. So I see in communication, there's both such great potential for danger, for destruction, for pain and conflict, and also such potential for collaboration. Just yesterday, I was conducting a coaching session, a mediation with a family. And it's so quick how a message of somebody saying, oh, I'd like to connect with you, how quickly it can break down into, you don't care about me, you only care about yourself, you're not disrespecting me. It can happen just like that. And for me, luckily, I'm kind of in the third party mode, so I can kind of witness when it happens, but it's so instantaneous. So I'm super passionate, one, because of my own upbringing in my family. So there's plenty of relationships for all of this chaos and breakdown to go down. And I've worked through so much of that with my own mom that I'm really like attuned to some of the places where it can fall apart. And I absolutely love bringing people together. So that's one of my passions, is supporting individuals through communication with one another and also with themselves, right? We have so many parts with ourselves. So to bring ourselves together, which ties a little bit into my journey, you asked me to share a little bit about what brought me here. Would you like me to now go into some of my history? Yeah.
Up to. Yeah.
So I started in engineering. I sometimes playfully say I'm your classic engineering turned life coach, just because I've never necessarily met somebody else that had the exact same journey. But so I started in mechanical engineering. I was smart. I graduated valedictorian. I was good at math. I had whatever, all the awards, GPA, all of those things. And so I was good at it. I was good at doing kind of the mainstream success kind of thing, only that I was miserable, right? Just because we're good at something doesn't necessarily mean that we love it. I had maybe 3 semesters left when I realized I couldn't take it anymore. I left everything. I dropped out of college. I quit the country. I sold my motorcycle, subleased my apartment, and left in search of something, in search of purpose, meaning, some higher truth. The only kind of direction that I had was shamans and ayahuasca that I had heard from somebody close to me. So I went to search for that. And kind of to make a long story short, after different shamans, ceremonies, healing modalities, meditation retreats, healing modalities, this, that, and the other, I went from trying to heal myself to trying to hear myself. That's where all this communication, all this empathy stuff comes in, when I started to make space for what's actually my human experience. What am I feeling right now? What am I wanting? What is it like inside of Eze, rather than what should it be like inside of Eze? That totally changed my orientation towards myself and towards life. And that's part of what makes me so passionate about doing what it is that I do right
Wow, that was so beautiful. Help us understand what miserable or feeling miserable felt to you like, or how did that show up in your
now.
life?
Yeah. How I vividly remember it showing up is I could hardly be with myself, meaning like I constantly needed some distraction. I constantly needed to text somebody or call somebody or be with somebody. And if it ever so aligned in the stars that nobody was responding or nobody else was home and I couldn't get a reach of anybody, I would sometimes wind up on the floor, just like crying in this like deep darkness. It was like I really hated me. And so to be alone with myself was absolutely despicable, was absolutely really miserable. It was so painful for me to just be with myself.
Mm. And I thank you for sharing that, because that's vulnerability, and many people are not really open or even aware of going there. So thank you. What I really want to take out of this, that taking the action at that point and saying, I do not want to spend the rest of my life this way, nor do I want to continue this way, and I'm going to change it. That takes a lot of courage. What would you, and I'm speaking from, I was exactly at that same point. For a very long time, I could not be alone with myself, and I didn't know what to do myself.
Yeah.
Neither did I know where to look, or even say, this is not normal, or I can actually be the driver of the change. So if people perhaps feel that way, and I know many performing artists have been confronted with exactly that right when the pandemic started, well into it, what kind of advice would you give? Where's the starting point? Like when we're in these discomfortable feelings of not being able to be with ourselves anymore.
Yeah. So kind of the first thing that comes to mind is find somebody that can be with you, right? Sometimes we call it space holding. So find somebody that can be the witness. It's like, I can't even be witness to my own pain. It's just too overwhelming. Then find somebody who can take that weight, to take that weight off your shoulders. And then that'll allow you to have your process, to collapse, to do whatever it is that you need to do, knowing that you don't have to hold it together. You don't have to at the same hold on to the hope that it'll be okay. Somebody else is there grounding that atmosphere. And I find something fantastic, something totally transformational happens whenever we're witnessed in our authenticity.
Thank you. Beautiful. let's talk about communication because
Yes, please.
wow. Okay, so let me explain to you where I see my main audience is at in terms of communication and using language. And maybe you and I, or you, can come up with a solution and a starting point. So depending in what kind of category of a performing artist one is in, except like people that are using their voices, artists don't use their voices quite often, meaning not even expressing feeling through words or emotions through words, meaning that leads into not having the right vocabulary to express what is really truly coming in and how to find a solution for it. For example, you're just overwhelmed with emotions and you can't get it out, right?
Yeah.
So which then leads into complete miscommunication, blaming, fear, abuse at times as well, because nobody knows how to lead, communicate, radically be open around words. So let's say, where am I going here? Let's say somebody would be talking to you. What would be your first advice of maybe expanding your vocabulary or how to really be a leader in terms of communication?
Yeah, sure. So even just taking, if I just go off of expanding the vocabulary, something that I do in my communication training, we do that explicitly. So we expand vocabulary of three primary areas. So that's body sensations, emotions. Both of those combined, we can call them feelings. I either feel something in my body or I feel something emotional. And then this crux in nonviolent communication, this modality called NVC, that it's called needs. And this is the abstract form of human desires. So for example, it's not like I want a pizza. The abstract need would be nourishment or food. And it's not, I need you to listen. The abstract need is to be heard or to be understood, to be seen. So there's these lists, and if there's whatever capacity we have, I can share those resources with you if you want to put them in the show notes or however that goes.
Yes, please.
So to expand the feelings vocabulary, to expand the needs vocabulary, to expand body sensation. So that's part one. Part two is to make distinctions between, for example, a feeling and a pseudo feeling. So when I say I feel rejected, this is what in NVC we would consider a pseudo feeling, because it's really my idea about what somebody else is doing to me. It's really my idea about somebody's intentions. And so really I'm in my head when I say, oh, I feel rejected. Really it's, I have an idea that the other person's intention is to blank, is to blah, 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 blah. Like I feel unappreciated. The same thing. I'm saying, I think that the other person doesn't appreciate me. So this is one distinction. If we can even just go into the realm of feeling themselves, like, okay, sad, right? It's like, I feel hurt, I feel sad, I feel disappointed, I feel angry, whatever it might be. If we can go into the realms of feelings, this is already self-connecting, because I'm not bothered with what my image is of what I think somebody else is doing to me. I'm more concerned with, and then what's my response to it? So in other words, if I think that somebody's ignoring me, how does it feel for me? An example is if somebody's ignoring me, I could feel sad. I feel sad, I want to connect, I feel sad. Maybe I feel confused. I don't understand why you're ignoring me. Maybe I feel relieved. Maybe I don't want to be talked to. And if I think that you're ignoring me, wow, what a relief. We're both ignoring each other. So for me to say I feel ignored, it's not really the true feeling, because it could lead to many different outcomes. And if I can connect with what's the specific internal experience, this is already kind of going to move me in the direction of self-connection. We could do the same thing for needs. So it's like, I need my mom to listen to me about such and such conversation. This is what we might call a strategy. The need is, yeah, I really want to be understood. I really want my intentions to be seen. I want somebody to get my pain. So it's a more abstract sense that opens me up to not be so reactive if the one particular person doesn't want to meet my need. In other words, if we're stuck on strategies, if one person doesn't meet my need, I need them to meet my need. And so maybe I'm going to be reactive. I'm going to be forceful. If I can connect with the abstract need, it opens up my creativity. You were talking about performing artists. It opens up creativity to come up with new solutions. And to me, it's amazing whenever I help somebody connect from strategy to need, how quickly they'll come up with another answer, how quickly they'll come up with other solutions now, once they know, mathematically speaking, once they know what variable to solve for.
Wow. Okay. I have a question. So
Yes.
where do you start? Let's say even in organizations where I believe the level of radical candor and truly speaking from your higher self and not from, oh, you said it so beautifully. I can't, it's not my language yet. The sub need, I think is what you called it, when we're trying to get attention through certain levels of communication, but that's actually not what we need. There's a sub need behind it. What we see in so many organizations is that there's this disalignment between, like, let's say, leadership and employees, right?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, and I'm going to take this coaching lesson here because that's really what it is. How can you close that gap?
Yeah. Yeah. So we can find that conflicts always exist at the level of strategies. So the strategy is a certain way to meet a need, and there's infinite strategies to meet each need. Like, I'll give two examples. One is very direct. So like food. I have a need for food. Okay, we can think of countless and maybe billions of different recipes, different ways that I could meet my need. I could go right now and bake some potatoes. I could drive to the whatever to the grocery store and get some things. I could go outside and pick some persimmons because there's persimmons nearby for me. So there's many strategies to meet each need. And most of us, we have what's called a preferred strategy for each of our needs. And the strategies is where we get into conflict. In other words, if we go back to that work analogy, one person says, oh, well, the boss says, this is how we're going to do things. And the employee says, no, we want to do it differently. So there's conflict. Now, maybe the boss says, I want to do it this way because I want there to be efficiency in the workplace. And then the employees might say, no, we want to do it this other way because we want there to be efficiency in the workplace. And if we can go to that level of, we both want efficiency, then we can realize we're on the same team. Now we can strategize together versus my idea versus your idea, when we realize that actually our goals are the same. And they're called universal human needs for a reason. We all have them in varying degrees of priority. We all want harmony, communication, connection, peace, to experience beauty. We all want rest, relaxation in our bodies. We all want to be understood. We all want to be heard. We all want to understand. We all want to contribute, to serve. So like this, they're universal human needs. If we can realize we're on the same page, we're on the same team, then collaboration is so incredibly, so much easier.
So in my words, what I heard you say, it is when we take out the need to one to be stronger than the other or to be right or wrong, and we're actually understanding that, hey, maybe we're actually saying the same thing just through different expressions, and we're truly having the same goal in mind and at heart, then collaboration can happen, meaning that we can actually create bigger, brighter, better futures. Is that?
Yes.
Yes.
I love how you said it. I find it so common, whether in families or couples coaching or mediation, the two or three different sides, they'll be saying the very same thing in different words. Just yesterday, the example. Okay, so the man was saying something along the lines of, he really wanted to be understood, and he feels like there's not interest on the other side. And then like the woman in the relationship, she was like practically begging, like, please, like, I want to understand you. I really want to, even if I can only get a sliver of what it is that is alive inside of you, like, I just so much want to connect with you. Okay, so it took some reformulation, for me to go from strategy to need. And then the man kind of arrived at the realization, wow, I never realized that you actually want to understand me. I always thought that I needed to like force my way into it. And it's because we tend to express things in language that I find to be tragic, meaning like sometimes one partner might say to the other, you're so selfish, you're so uncaring, you're so cold, when really what it's underneath is like, I would like to be closer. I want there to be more affection between us. And it's expressed so tragically that it has the opposite result. So I find it can be like this. We're in conflict. We're like pitted, you against me, but actually we're on the same team. We want the same things together.
So why do we do that?
So we have this language, right? We have this language where the way that we express things is what I call shorthand. So in other words, rather than me saying, let's say, rather than me saying to my mom, hey mom, you know, I feel really sad. I have certain needs that are unmet in our relationship. I want to be understood, and I want to have a sense that I can trust you. Instead, I might say, you never loved me. And so then what happens is then rather than saying, oh yeah, please tell me about your needs. Of course, I love you. You're my son. I want, and she's like, yes, I do. You're just too sensitive. Right. So we communicate in ways that are so tragic. They point us in the opposite direction. I can give you another file to drop that has 6 concentric circles. So it starts with needs. That's like at the very core of human experience. We have feelings that are pretty close. We have then observations. So this is what's happening in the outside world that we can both point to with our senses, mostly with our ears and our eyes. And we have certain strategies that we might have to meet our needs. And then we have varying degrees of thoughts, evaluations, or interpretations that I mentioned earlier, pseudo feelings, where I might say, I feel like you don't care. Then rather than bringing you closer to my need for connection or love or sweetness or affection between us, or to be heard, I'm pointing in the direction of, now you want to defend against my judgment. And then generally we can ping pong back and forth. Yes, I do love you. No, you don't. Yes, I do. And it's so common. I just want you to listen to me. I do listen. No, you don't. Yes, you do. No, you don't. Yeah. And they can just go on forever.
Wow, that is so intriguing. Holy. Okay, so that not only is communication key, but and is finding the right expression, meaning that the place that your words, our words are coming from really truly determines how they will be not well. Okay, I'm just going to say it out loud. I know it's not the truth though, but how it's being seen from the other person, and the other person also has a certain perspective on how they see the situation that then creates the actual conflict, right? Or perhaps the solution as well. Okay, wow. So this is very complex. I am overwhelmed because it's opening so many doors and of self-reflection, even in my own marriage or how I communicate with others. My German heart tends to be very emotional communicator. Let's just say that way. So how can we drop in more? Like, how can we understand that to get better results, to have nicer and more, I think, flourishing relationships? And I'm not only talking about like romantic relationships, but I'm talking also, interwork relationships, or performing artists, their relationships with their audience and with their fans, right? That's also communication. How can we make that better? And if you would just take it down to the lowest common denominator, so we understand.
Yeah, sure. So I would say, like, in the end, it ultimately boils down for me to making clear requests. Now, most people versions of requests, it's something like, no, I do. I communicate with my boss, my mom. It might be like, okay, you're rude and I need you to be less rude. And then like, that's most people's versions of like, I made a request. I need you to be less rude. We could look at so many things. So like, one, we're asking for what we don't want versus what we do want. But okay, even if we remove that, we tend not to tell people what we actually want them to do specifically. We tend to give them, let's say, our needs. Like, for example, maybe I say to a coworker, hey, dear coworker, I would like more collaboration between us. Can we make that happen? Maybe the other person, they might say, sure, I think we can have more collaboration. And then maybe a few days later, I get angry because they didn't do something. And they're kind of surprised. They're like, well, I didn't know that you wanted me to send that email to our boss on your behalf. You never asked. Oh, but I said I want a collaboration. Yes, but Eze, can you understand that collaboration doesn't necessarily translate to, hey, will you send that email over to the boss today? So this is what I mean. We tend to make very general, kind of hopeful thinking expressions of some quality of experience that we want without being specific. And sometimes what can happen is it can feel vulnerable, or it can feel embarrassing to name to somebody actually specifically what we would want back from them. So I would say that's at the end, if we can make these clear requests. And what can help us to get there is to understand our needs. So a straightforward way is to look at that list that we'll put in the show notes. There's a list of needs. Like, oh yeah, what is my need? I never realized what I want is like a sense of mutuality or a sense of respect. I never realized what it's really important to me here is honesty. And so once we have the need, then again, that creative self-expression can come out into coming up with some specific request. And the way that we can check for the request to be specific is, so one, that it's specific versus vague. So rather than I need you to be nice, it's like, hey, can you talk to me with this kind of volume and with this kind of, when you talk to me, can you have a smile on your face? Maybe the other person will say no, but we can get specific about actually what it is that we want using what's called positive language, not like that it needs to be happy, but that it needs to ask for what we do want versus what we don't. Because sometimes it can be, I need you to not spend so much time at work. So then I go and spend more time with my friends. And then my friend, my family, my partner, they're angry because I'm still spending time away from home, when what they wanted is for me to spend more time at home, not for me to not spend time at work. And so that's where we do want. And the other is that it's doable. So we have concrete, we have specific, we have positive, and we have what's called doable, meaning it needs to be something that the person can actually do. So for example, yeah, I need you to always be nice. It's neither specific nor doable, right? So, okay, can you hold the intention that whenever we have these kind of emotional conversations, can you hold the intention to pause for 5 seconds before you respond? Okay, I can hold that intention. Now I know something specific that I can do for you to hope to meet your needs. I'll kind of pause there because I know that I've said a lot.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. So that is so intriguing. My gosh. So there's a whole art around communication. Anyway, I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I knew that. However, I have yet to dive into it. So I'm so grateful for this conversation, because that
great.
opens up so many doors and invites me to self-reflect on how I communicate. I had a question and I can't remember it. Good Lord. So why do you think are we afraid of asking for what we want?
Yeah. So in my experience, most of us, at least I can say this is certainly true for myself and most people that I know, we grow up in a way like it's bad to want things. It's bad to have needs. It's like, okay, whether it goes to like children should be seen and not heard, or
My
okay, what's that?
That's my favorite. Yeah.
You got it. So you
I heard
got
it.
that one. You got that special human training. You know, whether it's big boys, big girls don't cry. So also don't have feelings, by the way. And our feelings let us know that we have needs. They're like the lights on the dashboard of a car. Like the lights that you cover up you put duct tape over your dashboard. It doesn't solve the check engine problem. You just don't see the light. So not being connected to feelings, we don't know what our needs are. And then, okay, just like if you ignore the light on your dashboard, then you have a real problem, right? Then if you don't have certain needs met, like the obvious ones are like food and water, if you don't have the feelings of thirst and hunger, okay, maybe you die or become weak. Same thing with loneliness. I mean, there's so much research that shows how loneliness or lack of touch is like, sometimes it's quoted as equally as damaging as like smoking a certain number of cigarettes per day. I forget the number, maybe it's like a pack a day or whatever it is. So there's concrete evidence that not meeting certain needs, even beyond food and water, is damaging. So it's like if I put duct tape over that dashboard, the need is still there. So God, I forget. I kind of went on a loop-de-loop, and I'm forgetting your specific question.
Right. Why is it so hard for
Why is
us?
it so hard? Yeah.
To
So
ask for
there's
help.
this word. There's this word needy. Yes. Like
Oh, yeah, you're
okay, and it's not like oh wow, you're so needy. This is wonderful. It's like, oh my God, you're so needy, and if you don't get it fixed, you don't get human association. That is that is so off. Oh, you're so needy, right? Or the word too to something. Okay. Oh, I have this. Oh, you're too sensitive. Oh, okay, you're too entitled. We have all this language to try to express our feelings, right? That makes it kind of terrifying to want things. Because then what happens if I'm annoying? Then I don't have friends. Or maybe I'm afraid, maybe whenever I asked for things when I was little, I was called selfish or greedy. And then I got in trouble. So, well, I don't want mom and dad to stop loving me. So I'll kind of not ask for things that I want, even though I still want those things.
Wow. All right. Okay. I'm going to go back and write all of this down. Okay. So because of prior communication that we received that have basically engraved our subconscious, that were either too much or needy or of other past stories is why we are even afraid of asking for help, because it brings up all of these signals in us, right? That
Mhm.
even we're not really able to put into, I don't want to say the right words, but into words that are not oof, putting on a us into a box again. So what could be a process be on how to reparent ourselves when it comes to that? Because I know from my own experiences,
Yeah.
asking for help is one of the hardest
Yeah.
things for me still to this day.
Yeah. So one place that we can look at is boundaries. Is where do I want to say no, where I still say yes? Because to the extent that I do things for other people from a place that feels burdensome to me, I'm going to be equally as scared to ask other people because I don't want to be a burden on other people. And if I kind of train myself that people do things that they hate doing for other people because that's what they should do, then of course I'm going to be scared to be a burden on others. So I know, for example, this is true for me. I will say yes even when I mean no. And so then this makes me scared to ask other people because then I don't trust their yes. And so even if I'm getting the help, I'm not really trusting it. And then it feels even burdensome to get their help because the whole time I'm worried, but like, do they hate it? Do they hate me now? Are they resentful? Or, is this going to impact our relationship negatively that they're doing this, even though they don't really want to? So this can be one place that is immediately accessible. Where am I saying yes? Where am I doing a half yes or a 3/4 yes or a 90% yes when really I don't want to? This can be one place.
Big light bulb right now. It's like, well,
Mm,
you're talking to me. That's me, 100%. Does that
yeah.
include saying yes and feeling good about it? And then when it comes closer and closer to the date where you have the engagement or what you said yes to, you're like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Does that include this?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Because in a way, like we get to change our minds, right? It's like sometimes I find we want freedom from having freedom. We want like if I just didn't have choice and I could go with it and I didn't have this free will thing, that would be so liberating because yeah, sometimes I say yes. And then I find, oh, maybe it was like 99.9%, or even if it was 100 and something came up and now I want to say no. And then it can be extra scary to then change our mind, right? To say, actually, something came up or I'm feeling this way. And sometimes, of course, maybe it's like I say no, like let's say the common example, going to the gym. Someone's like, I'm going to the gym. And then today I was like, I don't want to. But then also like even below that, another part's like, oh no, but I actually, I do want to because I want the discipline or I want the results or I want the whatever. So, in a way, it's not so black and white. It's not just if I have the feeling of, oh, but I don't want to. It's kind of like if I really sit with it, it's like, no, I really would prefer not to. Like with the gym, it's like, I don't want to. No, but really, if I sit with it, I do. I do. This is an important goal to me, like that. So I don't necessarily mean anytime that there's resistance. Sometimes that I sometimes want to caution against like the just follow your feelings situation. Just follow your feelings. Like, well, spontaneously, maybe in the moment, it's like right before an important event, right? Maybe people feel nervous or like, no, I don't want to give the talk. And if we were to follow those feelings, we would probably regret it later. No, of course, I tried for 6 months to get the speaking gig. And of course, some resistance, some nervousness is going to come up, but it doesn't mean that I don't really want to. So in a way, it's following that voice of what's actually really true for me. Like, am I resentful? Am I bitter? Do I hate doing this? And so then am I going to pay for it later, either by having resentment or by then being afraid to ask of others? Not just any time that I have like I don't feel like it kind of thing.
Okay. Huge light bulb. My gosh, thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
Okay, a little bit of a personal question.
sure.
With everything that you know right now, what would you tell your 16-year-old self, assuming that he would sit down and actually listen?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So 16-year-old self. So I was, let's say, a junior in high school. What would I tell myself? Yeah, I think I would tell myself it might be scary not to know what to do after high school. And you know what? Honestly, it's fine because you're gonna find something amazing once you sit with it, once you like really allow yourself to explore what actually light, you're gonna love it. And maybe it won't be at the same time that others. Maybe you don't already know what you're doing right here out of high school. Or if we're broadening this to anybody, even if you don't know exactly what you're doing right now, maybe it's in a few weeks, in a few months, definitely within a few years, you're going to absolutely know what it is that you love to do, and you're not going to look back. You're not going to regret it. So don't sweat it in the moment. kind of in a way, allow your heart to lead the way.
That seems to be the theme of the day today for me. Like every conversation that I've had leading up to our conversation was about less grabbing and thinking to have to like get to the goal or
Yeah.
to what is expected of us, and more feeling into ourselves and trusting that we already know the answer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just calming down, right? Like slowing down, taking the breath, taking the break, and allowing ourselves to actually trust what is coming in when we take that break.
hmm Yeah. And of course, that's the very nice sounding version. Also, I might say, go to this training and then you study this, and then afterwards you use this booking software and you set up your website here, and yeah, great. And now you can do it in 6 months rather than in 6 years. I might also tell the 16-year-old version that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think if there's a balance of really following our intuition, I think, and this is going to everybody, I would say, it's this fear that we're not doing enough.
Yeah.
But with that fear of not, oh, what are you relating to that?
No, I'm saying me too.
Yeah, we're okay, all of us, that when we have that fear not doing enough, that no matter what we're going to do, it's never going to be enough, because
Yeah.
we don't even know for ourselves what actually means enough, or what
Yeah.
determines good enough or enough work, right? And that's when we're tapping into that too much and burnout and getting into the hamster wheel, versus stepping back and looking at, is this really the life I want to live? Is this who I want to be? And having that connection and communication, I like that, really with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. This enough. This not enough. I mean, yeah. Just earlier, I was thinking, gosh, I really haven't done enough today, and then I thought, well, really, because I sent the email and I primed the template and I took care of that spreadsheet and I did this other thing. Oh, and I prepared this content, whatever. And I thought, wow, actually that was kind of a lot. Oh yeah, it can in a way be so ingrained that's one side. It can be so ingrained, like not enough, not enough. And the other part is for me that it comes from our language, right? So Marshall Rosenberg, the creator of nonviolent communication, he would reference this study. I forget the man who did the study, but there was this man who studied the correlation between violence in cultures and the verb to be. So to be describing you are or I am, you are wonderful, you are bad, you are selfish, you are caring, you are generous. That whenever we describe our feelings or our observations in static language, it creates all kinds of wacky, crazy things in the psyche, because maybe it's like, maybe I donate 20% of my income every time, and one time I'm low and I didn't donate, and one person says, wow, you're so greedy, you're so selfish. And then okay, and then forever that's imprinted. I'm so greedy, I'm so selfish. And so then I give everything that I ever have away, but it's never enough. Because we have language that's static. So just like earlier I mentioned two, right? Too much or too little. So there's the idea that there's a right amount of equality to be. And so anywhere that there's the metric, oh, if I'm on this side, I'm too something. I'm too selfish, or I'm not kind enough. If I'm on the other side, oh, I'm too whatever. I'm too passive, or I'm not assertive enough. And so it can basically become impossible. It's usually very seldom that things happen perfectly in life. If we consider like the body, we need a certain amount of vitamin A, vitamin D, etc. It's usually we're going to fall in one of two camps. Either we have not enough vitamins, or we have too much vitamins. It's really going to be hardly ever, or maybe never, that we have just the right amount of micro and milligrams of every perfect macro and micronutrient for our body, right? So landing at just the right amount is an impossible feat. So of course we'll never be enough, because if I fall slightly on this side, I'm not kind enough. If I fall on that side, oh, I'm not assertive enough, I'm not boundaried enough. And so to have enough, it's really like mission impossible.
Oh. Wow. Okay, I think I have to hire you. Holy, I almost swore. Okay, let's talk about, like, I was not prepared for this. No, Okay, let's talk about where people can find you. Like if this was something that you feel like you need in your life, which I certainly do, even for my company. God, where can we find you? What are your coaching programs that you're offering right now? And what's coming
So,
down the line for you?
yeah. So you can find me at my website, ezesanchez.com. That's EZESANCHEZ.com. You can find me on Instagram. That's at Eze Sanchez Coaching. So same spelling with then coaching at the end. You can even find me on Facebook, ezesanchez.coach. I work one-on-one with individuals. I also do mediation. So that's between relationships or between families. And I offer group coaching programs around communication. So around so many of the elements that we're talking about here. I have a 10-week program starting in May. That's in May 3rd. And so if you reach out to me via any of those other ways, I can send you the info. And then I also have a year-long, super in-depth program for people that want to really dive deep into some of the work that we're talking about here. And that starts in late March.
Wow. Okay. I don't know. And maybe I mean, literally shooting from the hip here, but I feel that this kind of work is imperative for anybody, everybody, regardless in what kind of walk of life you are. It is imperative to understand that no matter who you're interacting with, that your words and your way of communicating and your skills around of communicating will create, perhaps a new, oh my gosh, words leaking, a new category of people or a new legend that you can leave behind. And I'm saying that because I grew up in a structure where communication was not something that was applied at all. Like I never heard that, that I was loved. Let's just start at the basic, right? Where talking was not something that we did.
Yeah.
If that was in my home or if it was, let's say, in the school that I was in. And the more and more I'm stepping into the person that I am, the more I'm finding that the words that I want to use to express how I feel are not coming in because I haven't used them yet, or I'm not aware of. However, through expanding my communication skills, I have realized that the relationships I'm carrying are so much richer now. And there is less room for assumption and more room for growth. And I think we need that in our life. We need that in our work environments, in our homes, in creating that new generation that is coming in to change this world, truly.
Yeah, I'm so with you. And first, I just want to acknowledge the tenderness, right? Of like, yeah, not growing up with communication, with hearing you're loved, or even with being asked, like, oh yeah, how are you feeling? And I find it so rare in my childhood. Oh, how are you feeling? It's usually not a part of like my daily life or the daily lives of many people. And as far as you said, yeah, anybody from any walk of life. I mean, I've worked with doctors, from doctors to entrepreneurs to creative artists who were sometimes entrepreneurs, sometimes not entrepreneurs, from I want to say maybe 18-year-olds to individuals in their late 50s or 60s. So yeah, for me, it's really it's like an applicable human condition and an applicable human skill. What we're talking about here, that's not specific to like a particular sector of finance or whatever it might be.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. This has been so needed for me. It's still, I feel a lot of resistance just leaning into our conversation, which, always shows me I need to go there more, or I'm invited to go there more. So thank you so much for coming into my life. Thank you for having this conversation. I really deeply appreciate you speaking so freely and honestly. And I love what you've learned and opened yourself up to. So thank you. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Such a pleasure, really. And I'm already like so excited to hear the impact that it's having on you and kind of some of the doors that it's opening. I'm really glad to be contributing in this way. So thanks for having me here.
Thank you. Well, guys, that is the end of today. Whatever really stayed with you, and if you're me, there was a lot for me today that I'm taking away. You can definitely support Eze or myself by just tagging us in your biggest takeaways. And you can find all the information in the show notes or on our Instagram pages. We're sending you so much love. Thank you for being here. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If this message resonates with you, please pass it on to someone who needs to hear this right now. And if you like what you've heard, your feedback will go a very long way. If you just take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me. Till next time, point at yourself to rise to all that you are capable of.